Alright, I left off vainly going round and around in the wrong chapter of Peter looking for a verse that I thought would be quite a good lead into the next part of this little exercise in numbers. We're really not done with arraying Solomon, because here I did it again. Numbers much larger, as you can see, and I'm not quite sure what to make of this, but over here you'll see I have these numbers 99, 88, 11, 11, 11, 33, 11, 11, 9. How do I get to this crazy thing? Well, because I just started adding these things in pairs. 153 and 246 became 399. And if I just wanted to leave the 99 and use that 3 and make that 6, the 6 and 2 makes 8. There was 88. And of course, 434 is 11. So if I just move that 4 to that 3 spot, that becomes 7. I crunched those together, of course, and I got 11. This was even more fun. Here's 6 and 5 is 11, and 38 and 18 is 56. Why, that makes another 11. Here, we have 16, 17, because this is 7 and that's 11. That's 16 and 17, and they're two consecutive numbers. I think that's interesting. They make a 33, which is nice. Of course, another way to do that would have been to make 7 and 5, 12. And that would have gave us this, which is really 11 times 11, which I could represent this way. And I think I'll try that and see what I come up with when I finish this. Then we go down a little bit more. We had these two together, 19 and 57. That doesn't look like we could do much with it, really, except when I take 9 and 5, they make 14. And now we have 1147. I crunched that together, and it's 11, 11. And what's left? 1143. Well, that's 1179. Or 11 plus 43 is 54, and that's still going to give you 9. So let's look at that. 9 and 8 is 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 9 is 33. Do the same thing on the other side, and that's 33. That's 66. And all these numbers divisible by 11. That's just a little bit of fun stuff we can do just by becoming familiar with these combinations that make 11 and numbers that are factors of 11. And we can see from going back and forth that a lot of rather large numbers are easily recognizable as factors of 11. And maybe 99 or 66. You can see. And in fact, 55, 33, and 77 are all kind of like this 16 and 17 here. They're consecutive numbers. 33 is 16 and 17. If I had 55, that would be what? 27 plus 28. Well, that's interesting. Oh, there it was. 19 and 57. So 57, there's a number that's 28 plus 29. Yep, that equals 57. So now we're going to talk about the Quran. There's much more to do in Solomon, and that's only half. So this 11 was reduced down to 9 numbers. I wonder what the other 9 chapters will yield. But we won't do that right now. Maybe that's academic. I wanted to show you, or read for you, this astonishing verse. It's in the New Testament. And you'll understand why the Quran is significant for its time. All of these books are very significant for the time because what? They tell us that the knowledge of the ancient people was vast. It's very precise because our very best simulations, you see it on TV, special programs, science fiction, they pretty much are in agreement with what these writers of the New Testament, this is Peter, 2 Peter 3:10. This is what it says, but the day of the Lord will come like a thief. On that day the heavens will disappear with a shrill noise. The heavenly bodies will burn up and be destroyed, and the earth with everything in it will vanish. Science tells us that's quite reasonable to expect at some distant future. A lot of scenarios could make that happen. In fact, that might be descriptive enough. Let's try another version because not all of these will say the same thing. Some are a little more. Here's another one. But the day of the Lord shall come as a thief, in which the heavens shall pass away with great violence, and the elements shall be melted with heat, and the earth and the works which are in it shall be burnt. And that's verse 10. I can just keep going and going and going. But this is the one. They actually have it in here, which really gives you a modern perspective. Same words, but just a little more modern. So yet God's day will come as a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a hissing noise. But the elements, being intensely hot, will be dissolved, and the earth and the works in it will be destroyed. And 11, of course. Since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of persons ought you to be in holy acts of conduct and deeds of godly devotion? So if you believe in the science, shoot good square. Isn't it something? All the elements intensely hot will be dissolved, and they have discussed this repeatedly in all the various series by everybody, Carl Sagan, yeah. So what could make that kind of thing happen? Well, an expanding star. We all know this happens to main sequence stars. So there it is. Where did they learn this? These are things they learned from the Christ. And where was the Christ? Alexandria, Egypt, and who knows where else for a very long time. So that's one of the very most intriguing verses, I believe, in the whole New Testament, in terms of the actual scientific nature of things. And again, 9, 10, 11 verses, usually these things are strung together. Now, this brings us to the Quran. And I was going to talk about the bee. And first, before I get to the B, I'm going to get to another more fascinating verse. And that's where chapter 57, Surah 57. This is Al-Hadid, the iron. Now what's interesting about the number 57 is that out of 114 verses, this would be like that 49 on my table here. Just on the left side of the furthest extreme, 58 would be the next chapter. But those two pretty much define the middle. And you wouldn't see this. Nobody would, except people who are really obsessed with these number algorithms. But not only is it in this relative middle, but 57:25 is the most interesting verse. Because just like this bit of stellar knowledge and understanding, it seems to be far above all the rest of the teaching. And Peter, verse 57 here is just one of a great many verses that stand on their own. If you have any degree of modern understanding of what's going on in the environment, so then you have to ask yourself, they really don't get it yet? You know? Well, we'll see. Okay, because this book will be exactly like any other one that's printed. The only difference is a little variation in interpretation. And due to the various dialects, translation-wise, even Arabic will sound different from one place to the next. So, sometimes you want to find something, you need to look in more than one Quran as well. But none of them will say anything other than what this English translation says, for the most part. And here it is. Indeed, we sent our apostles with clear proofs, and sent we down with them the book and the scale, that people may establish themselves in justice. Semicolon, which in Arabic is and. Wonderful, isn't it? And sent we down iron, wherein is Latin mighty power, and also benefits for mankind, and that God may prove who helpeth him and his apostles in secret. Semicolon, and. Verily, God is all strong, the ever prevalent. Now, I'm almost really reluctant to look up all of this understanding associated with 25:18. And nowhere in here is it going to say that iron in the earth, whatever isotope it may happen to be, by the way, is a nuclear furnace that keeps it very hot, and all those pressures containing the solid mass around this nuclear furnace. And because of the cracks, all these plates move around. So, I mean, you go from the first premise to the next, and 9, 10, 11, it's all through the book, you know. Mountains as boats, highways to guide them, aright, away from him. But when you read the way this stuff is broken down, you have to ask yourself, gee, you must read this stuff carefully with the perspective on just logic, common sense. You know, so iron makes the almost now visible, we can see with goggles and whatnot, Van Allen belts, the force field. And you go through that, the turbulence rips you to shreds, burns you. So that's very significant about the iron. And it's right there. 57. Isn't that amazing? That's the wall. Numbers? Numbers everywhere? Well, let's look at 57. And that was 25. Huh, it only has 29 verses. Now, based on what we do, the biblical numbers, what might we see occurring with 57, 29? There's something about that. Remember 21:11? It's interesting, isn't it? 57 and 29 kind of relate. Why is that? Because instantaneously our mind goes to this. Back to this formula. Okay, so we're going to stop right there. But wait a minute. We haven't talked about the B yet, have we? And there's so many more avenues to explore and formalize to do this. Let me just show you this. 016. Sum it up. And you sum it. 11, 12, 17, 16. What do we do? So 16, if you think about it, it's an interesting number. Power of 2. When you write that down in binary, base 10. Looks like that. Phase 2. And I forget exactly how many verses are in that surah. Is it 128? So 16 is 2 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 4, 8, 16. So that's 2 and 4. 128, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 28. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7. $128 to the 7. What if I wanted to divide that 128 by 16? What would I get? This is binary code. 128. This digit would be on, all the rest off. 16 up to this digit would be on, because there's 32 and 64, twice 64, 128. See? That's how binary works. And so, it's just 8. 48, 80, 128. That's exactly right. So if I were to look at the 128, and divide it by 16, that would equal 8. But then 2 to the 7 minus 2 to the 4 is not the same as 2 to the 7 minus 4. Because that equals 2 to the 3rd power. So these are different. You look at it different. But if you just subtract the exponents, since it's the same number, 2 to the 3rd power is 8. Now you look at that. This is an index. Chapter and verse in the Quran. And look at this explicit advanced mathematical function. It's on its face. And the argument within it, it's embarrassing to even read it or explain what it's about. But the variations that you can see where the B is mentioned, in that little section where the B is mentioned, that's maybe, like I said, part of a stanza of 3 verses. And outside of that, it's a portrayal of the obscene things that men do to their daughters. Yes. So, this is one of the unique features of the Quran, and that it's not only a monolith, but it tends to speak to you, just like these 9 and 11 verses in the Old and New Testament speak to you. They prohibit you. Over here, there's compelling mathematical logic, and at a level that you can't arrive at quite so easily. In either the New or the Old Testament, you really have to know something already, but here, they give it to you quickly. And again, there are 114 surahs in the Quran, and that's entirely divisible by 19. And what is the 4th day of creation? Verse 19, Torah. So, I wanted to cover a lot more, but having a little trouble keeping everything assembled right now. The lighting's not good, but we're going to take a chance on it and get this out to you as soon as possible. So we're going to go a lot further than just this. Alrighty, thank you again.